Hi everyone, this is Sarah from Divergent Minds Tailored Support, and this video is going to all be about masking. It's going to cover what is masking, why do we do it, how it impacts child and school, how it can impact an adult in a workplace. The last part of this video is going to be if you've got a masking child in the school and the school aren't seeing the mask, is how I would carry out a school observation if I was observing your child. And it could be something you could then ask your child's school to do. So what is masking? Masking is a strategy that lots of neurodivergent people do to fit in with society. It's mimicking potentially some people around them, picking up on social cues, wanting to appear the same as everyone else, but often it's hiding a lot of anxiety and discomfort and, being in sometimes social and busy situations. So we'll start off by children. We've worked with many families over the years who come to us with the child that's masking in school. And I would say 80% of the time, they're then also told by that child's school that your child is fine when they're in. These children, typically at home, are really struggling with the thought of going to school. They're incredibly anxious. They're struggling to sleep. They're waking up. They don't want to go to school. You get them there. You've had to use a lot of motivational language in the morning, a lot of encouragement. You're exhausted, you feel like you've done your day's work before your day begins, and they walk through that school and within a second their mask is up, and from the teachers and staff and the school looking in, they appear to be fine. As professionals, we know that's not the case, and as their parents, you really know that's not the case. Although that mask has gone up and your child suddenly appears calm and they're okay, the anxiety inside them is still definitely there, and at this point that mask is trying to cover that anxiety so they don't stand out from their peers, they don't look like they're struggling. And to do this all day every day, the impact on someone's mental health can be quite hard. They're mimicking, they're hypervigilant, they are aware of all the noises around them, the expectations, the social interactions. It's an awful lot for a neurodivergent person, adult, child to manage. And in a school environment, often they're echoey, there's lots of movement, there can be noises, there's unpredictability of other children. And that mask, as they move through education, from experience, generally becomes harder and harder for those children to manage. As the demand from schoolwork increases, as the social complexities increase, the demand and the anxiety, not always, I want to state that, but I would say over 50% of the time will increase as a child progresses through the education system. And for some children, they will eventually hit something called autistic burnout. And when we hit that point, I think it's very important to acknowledge the wording has then changed. It's no longer your child is refusing to go to school. It's no longer your child won't go to school. It's hit a point where they cannot do it any longer. They're mentally exhausted. And, often this isn't a quick fix. By the time a child hits this point, it's not going to be they're going to have a week off school and they're going to bounce back and be fine. It's a long journey, often taking months for them to come back from that. And I would say if you've got a child in this situation, the biggest thing you can do for your child at this point is to remove as much demand as possible and just give them time and space. They've probably withdrawn themselves from the world around them, spending maybe a lot of time in their room, and it is just a process that you can't rush. You can't make it go any faster. It needs to be on their time. And I think when you've got a child, your child's voice at this point is critical in any support you put in place. We work with lots of families in this situation where we help them then find something more alternative provision, a more appropriate provision moving forward. Now, the same goes for adults in the workplace. I think there's lots and lots of adults nowadays that are realising they're neurodivergent. Masking, is a fairly new, it's been fairly newly acknowledged that this is a thing. And a lot of the time, adults who kind of get to the point where they're unable to go to work any longer have been diagnosed with anxiety and depression. When in fact, actually, they've hit that autistic burnout. It's no longer, again, like a child, they won't go to work, they don't want to go to work, they can't, they're mentally done. And the same strategy as a child, for the best thing you can do for yourself is give yourself time and try and reduce as much demand on yourself as possible. And again, you know, that is a process we've supported lots and lots of people through. So obviously burnout can happen at any point of your life. Now, to prevent burnout or reduce the probability of yourself or your child hitting that point is learning how to unmask and giving yourselves opportunity to do that, not for 5 minutes, not for 10 minutes, for a good chunk. So an easy strategy that I've worked with lots of people and I very much implement in my own house, as everyone knows, I live this myself. I've got 2 diagnosed children. And so I use this strategy 90% of the time at weekends. You know, there's going to be the odd time something crops up, but again, I'm very mindful of those weekends and you know, assessing where I think my child or children are. So how I do that, I think social media and the world of that is, there's a lot of pressure on parents to be seen out doing lots and lots of different activities. Absolutely, we want our child to experience activities, but how I do it on a weekend is on a Saturday. Yeah, let's go and do something fun. You know, let's go and do something, go to cinema, whatever it is, aquarium, you know, but the Sunday is their days. I am going to reduce as much demand as possible, and there's going to be very little expectations. I try not to go to see anybody, and I try not to have anybody in this house. It's their day. It's their day to be who their true selves are. And for us, that works. As an adult, that is also really, really, really important, to give yourselves that opportunity just to be you. There's no demand to go and see anybody. There's no demand. Give yourself that time and space. It's the most effective strategy you've got if you're a high masking person, because mentally the impact on anyone's mental health is going to be damaging at the end of the day. So, you know, I think so when we're working with an adult or a child, what we want to do is put in strategies throughout that day for yourself. Okay, you want a whole day where potentially, if that works for you, brilliant. But there needs to be time throughout your working day and a child's school day where they get that opportunity to unmask, whether it's for 5 minutes, whether it's time out, whether you go out of your office and just go for a walk and be in your headspace and come back. Obviously, it's very dependent on your employment. But I think employers are becoming more aware of the neurodivergent community and how beneficial we are to the workplace. And so please go and have conversations with your employers to see what adjustments can be made, you know, because so many neurodivergent people bring absolutely fantastic ideas and knowledge to the workplace, and we want to be able to contribute. And so by putting some sometimes really reasonable and just adjustments can make that a really successful experience for you. And that's the same with school. We work with lots of schools putting in those adjustments so the child is able to thrive and engage in their education. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm going to do a video on how this part of the video is going to be how I observe a masking child in a classroom. It's something I've done many, many times, and it's always been successful. And it's something, you know, I had to ask my children's prospective schools to do when I was going through the diagnosis and their EHCPs, because my children are also heavy maskers. So before I even step foot in the school, I have a conversation with that child's parents, carers, guardians, and say, okay, you tell me how you know your child is starting to struggle in a situation, because children don't typically or don't always present anxiety as we'd expect. So I'm just going to pick up 2 very recent ones. One was a young girl who would push her thumb, and mum said she'll do that in the palm of her hand and she'll do it as hard as she can. It's not often obvious, but I know she's starting to struggle. And another young boy would scratch the back of his neck when he was becoming overwhelmed. So then before we're going into the classroom, I'm not going to engage with the children. I'm going to find somewhere really quiet, hopefully not too noticeable, sit at the back, where already I am looking for the signs the parents have told me. And a lot of the time I do see it. Often it's a little bit more subtler than the parents did, but it's definitely there, because again, these children don't want to appear different. Then what I'm looking for from the waist up, masking child is going to be doing everything they can to fit in, and so they're going to look like they're absolutely fine from the waist up. They may be doing their signs, but apart from that, the teacher might not know what that means. You know, they appear to be sat still, often too still, and they're looking at the teacher. What you will find is the regulations below the table. It may be picking at their nails, digging their nails into their skin, picking at school jumpers, tights, trousers, pushing their heels into the floor, their toes, rocking back and forward. Anything they do to try and help regulate themselves throughout the day. What I would say, if you're going to ask a professional to do that, is ask them if they could at least do 20 minutes, 30 minutes ideally, because what you do tend to see typically is those regulation strategies will increase as the lesson moves on. it's a really effective tool to actually show that actually, yeah, your child is struggling and they need your support, so they're able to engage in their education to their true potential. And if you've got a very masculine child who is really, really struggling, I would be saying to the school, let's get some things in place now, because what I don't want is my child unable to attend at some point due to the exhaustion of masking. So masking is a useful strategy in some ways. It enables neurodivergent people to feel that they belong in a world that can often be overwhelming and consuming. But it's a strategy that can have a detrimental effect as well. And so if you are a masker, or you do have masking children, give them time to unmask and just be who they truly are, without demand, without social expectations. And hopefully their journey through education and into adulthood will be more successful, and more adults can remain in the workforce and thrive. Thank you. If anyone wants to reach out, please search us up, Divergent Minds Taylor Support.